I think of it from the standpoint, I'm always one, Charlie. I want to do what's right for the ecosystem, but I also want to do what's right for the pocketbook of the farmers. And I really think we need to get back to the point where food is being consumed as preventative medicine. And if we truly begin to understand how soil functions and how these plants develop these phytonutrient compounds, that's really going to put farmers in the driver's seat, and that they will be rewarded for the good work they're doing.
That was Gabe Brown, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
G'day, welcome back to the Regenerative Journey and welcome to this episode with Gabe Brown. I was very privileged to catch up with Gabe earlier this year. I think it was February, March, the day before the Wilmot Field Day, the famous Wilmot Field Day up at Ebor on the Wilmot property. Big shout out to Atlas Carbon and My Grazing who facilitated the chat with Gabe as he was the headliner, the main man there at the field day for the 2 days. He spoke, did a keynote on day one and then did some activities in the paddock on day two, but lucky to catch up with him in the lush gardens of Sarah and David Schmuder there in Armidale. So a big shout out to those guys. Thank you for the facilitation. We had some, not tech difficulties, some power cords to run and some Wi-Fi to find and all those sort of things, but we managed it. Actually, I think I might have even used Gabe's phone to record some of it on the video. Anyway, it was a lovely chat. Gabe is globally renowned as a farmer, a very practical farmer who is using regenerative practices, cover cropping, some of the practices he uses on his farm in the United States. And his book, Dirt to Soil, is an absolute banger if you are looking to work out how you might be able to utilise multi-species pasture cropping in your system, but he also does an amazing job of grazing and just general land management. Very cool to catch up with Gabe. He's very patient, very laid-back kind of guy, a font of information, and I trust you enjoy this episode on the Regenerative Journey with Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown, welcome to the Regenerative Journey and welcome to Highbury here in Armidale.
Thanks. It's good to be with you.
It's great to see you, meet you finally. I know you've had a bit on the last couple of weeks. Give us a bit of a rundown on, you got into the country how long ago?
I arrived Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Like 3 days ago?
Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
drove from there, and I can't even tell you the places I've been. It's went up there to Alistair McLeod's property and spent a couple days there, which was really good.
Awesome.
And,
so you went to Yask, you went to Cavan and Bloomfield.
Yep, went to Cavan and then up to Bloomfield, and now we're over here at Armidale.
And do people call you Brownie?
No.
Is that a thing?
No.
Have they not called you Brownie since you've been in Australia?
Yeah,
because that's an Australian.
I've really never been called Brownie. Yeah.
Would you mind if you were called Brownie?
I've been called about everything in the book, so nothing bothers me at all. Yeah, most of them by my wife. That's another story.
I did ask Gabe if he was a swearer. He didn't really answer the question. He said he probably wouldn't swear, but if you want to get a bit of emotional and a bit flagrant with your language, that's absolutely fine.
That's all right.
Gabe, you're here for so you've had a couple of days here. Tomorrow you're out at Wilmot field day, the annual field day, which is always a fantastic couple of days.
Yep.
And your keynote?
That's what they tell me.
You deserve it because you've come the furthest. If there was an award for the most travelled, it'd be you. And have you been to Wilmot yet? No.
No, I have not.
You have got a lot to look forward to.
Yep. We'll be out there this afternoon, so I'm looking forward to it.
And you're doing a few other events while you're in the country?
Mm-hmm.
And how long are you here for?
I'm here until the 6th.
What is that?
So
another week?
Another 10 days. Yep.
And you've been to Australia a few times before, haven't you?
I have. Was here in 2012 and again in 2016, so this is my third visit.
That's all. Yeah, so 8 years ago. And one of your mates is Cole Seiss, right?
That's right. Yep. Colin and I are good friends.
You're going to head down to his farm?
I am. I'm going to spend a few days there after the event at Wilmot.
Good on it. Is he going to relax there, or is Cole going to put you to work?
Come on now. Be honest. We all know Cole doesn't work. Let's be honest about that.
I'm sure he's probably saved up a few daggy sheep for you to crutch or something.
He can dream. Ain't gonna
happen. Gabe, let's get back to this podcast is called The Regenerative Journey because it's and I interview farmers, dentists, actresses, doctors, chefs. It doesn't matter. Everyone is I believe on somewhat of a regenerative journey in their respective industries. Well, I like to think they are.
Mm-hmm. Tell
me, where did not necessarily your regenerative journey start, but where did little Gabe Brown appear in the world? You have to tell us how long ago.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Way back in 1960. So I was born and raised in Bismarck, North Dakota. I grew up in town and took an interest in agriculture after I took a vocational agriculture course when I was in the 9th grade. And I was just enamored with all things ag. And so not being from a farm, I thought my way into agriculture was to become a vocational educator. And so I went to the university to become a teacher. But as luck would have it, married my college sweetheart who was from a farm, and she had 2 sisters, no brothers, and after we got married, we were finishing up our university studies, and her folks reached out and wanted to know if we wanted to come back and take over the farm. And immediately I said yes. My wife, not so much. She said she married a city kid to get away from the farm. But as it ended up, moved there and farmed up until about 7 years ago when we turned the farm over to our son.
So that's why you got time to come over.
Yeah, that's why I needed something to do then, so started Understanding Ag, which is a regenerative consulting company, and have spent the last 7.5 years traveling more than 275 days each year all over the world, just sharing my story and talking about regenerative agriculture.
You've done a great job of jumping from 1960 to the present day in about 3 minutes, Gabe. We're going to have to go back there a bit.
Okay.
Tell me, given that you were a city boy, and then you did your university and then you took over the farm essentially. Your foundation, in your living in the city, do you think that was an advantage to you in any way, as opposed to being born on the farm and then intergenerational farming?
And I think it was a big benefit to me. It was difficult in that I had to learn all the lessons the hard way, usually twice, before it sunk in. But it left my mind very open. And because I was new to agriculture, I was an avid learner. Everything in front of me, I just wanted to learn more and more. And I've always been pretty inquisitive and asking why. And so, like, for instance, I learned to farm from my father-in-law, who was very conventional, heavy tillage, use of synthetics. And I could never understand why we'd till, because we're in a pretty semi-brittle environment. We get about 10 to 12 inches of rainfall, and then another 4 or 5 inches from the snow we get. And so 16, 17 inches a year at best. And we'd till, and then it'd be so dry, we'd be praying for rain. And that never made sense. So once I spent 8 years working for my in-laws until we had the opportunity to buy part of the farm from them. And so, I immediately went no-till. Sold all the tillage equipment and went no-till because it just made sense to me.
You burnt the bridges.
Yeah, and I knew if I sold that tillage equipment, I'd never be tempted to go back. And so I'm a risk taker, and if it makes sense to me, I'm going to do it. And so started no-tilling. Then first year it went great, and I thought this is easy. 1995 came along, the day before I was going to start harvesting 1,200 acres of spring wheat, lost our entire crop in a hailstorm. So that was pretty devastating, set us back financially. 1996 came along, we lost 100% to hail again, started to diversify the crop rotation. Bank wasn't going to loan me any more operating money, so my wife and I took some menial off-farm jobs to try and put food on the table. 1997 came along, we dried out, it was a major drought in the area, so no crop income, and things were really getting desperate, but I was starting to notice some changes to the land. Wildlife were returning, we were getting insects, some birds coming back, and I thought, there's something going on here. 1998 come along, we lost 80% of our crop to hail. So 4 years, literally no crop income. I tell people that was hell to go through, but it was absolutely the best thing that could have happened to us. Even though we were $1.5 million in debt at the end of 98, which was a lot of money back then, especially to a young family starting out with a mortgage and everything. But the good news is that what was really happening in those 4 years, little did I know, I was being shown how ecosystems function. And I was starting to do things, for instance, 1998, after that final hailstorm, that came a little earlier in the season. I scraped enough money to buy some cover crop, which we didn't even call cover crops back then. It was simply forage or fodder. I seeded that, and then I literally didn't have the money to put it up for hay. And so we just turned the cattle out on it during the winter and grazed it through the snow. And I'm going, cattle did fine, cost me less money. This makes sense. So then what happened, I was just blessed. A lot of people started taking an interest because I was the odd guy trying these odd things. And a lot of the right people came into my life at the right time, and I learned from them. And I'm always one where there's not a lot going on upstairs here, but I'm really good at stealing ideas from other people. So I can go visit a farm, or somebody visits my ranch, and then they give me an idea, and I'll try that. That might work here. And so it sent me on this 30-year journey of converting dirt to soil.
But that you're referencing there, the failures, well, you might have thought them failures at the time, but they were certainly lessons, no doubt, you learned. That's life, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's learning opportunities, and it's what you make of those lessons that determine your path in life.
As they say, there's no growth stimulant like pain.
Yeah.
Tell me, and so even though you couldn't harvest for those 3 years, because one of those years you didn't even get a crop in, you were making an impact, weren't you? The crop was getting to nearly the point of harvest, so there was activity, there was biology, there was organic matter. You were making a lot of progress.
Yeah, and I started to diversify the crop rotation because those early hailstorms taught me, boy, I don't want too many eggs in one basket, so to speak. So let's diversify and have crops that mature at different times. And I did that. The second year there, 1996, I planted peas, which could be harvested early. Also, I planted them because they're a legume, fixed some nitrogen. And so I started to diversify the crop rotation, and that plays right into the principle of diversity. So, unbeknownst to me then, I was really beginning to apply what's become known as the 6 principles of soil health.
Let's go there. Let's do it.
Okay.
I know this is like straight off the top, but they are critical. And you call them the 6 principles of regenerative agriculture? Is that how you sort of...
Well, we all know there's 4 ecosystem processes. The energy cycle, sunshine, photosynthesis, the water cycle, which, is you have to have aggregation in the soil to infiltrate water. You have to have carbon in that soil to hold on to that water, make you resilient to drought. The nutrient cycle, and by that I mean the natural nutrient cycle, which is plants feeding carbon compounds to microbiology, and then the microbiology are consumed by other biology and release nutrients available to the plants. Natural nutrient cycle. And then the 4th ecosystem process is that of biodiversity. Where in nature do you find a monoculture? only where mankind's actions have caused it to appear. So we need that biodiversity. So those 4 ecosystem processes take place anywhere in the world where there's land. Okay. What we need, though, to drive those 4 ecosystem processes is to implement the 6, what's become known as the 6 principles. So those 6 principles, and briefly, they are: number 1, context. Everyone's context is different. I'm from North Dakota, USA. My context is certainly different than that here in New South Wales. Okay, you have to take your context into account, whether it be the precipitation you get, the days of sunshine, frost-free days, your financial context, your community and family context. All those things are different from one family to another. So you got to take them into account. Second principle is least amount of disturbance possible. And by that we mean tillage. Tillage is a disturbance. You destroy soil aggregation, lower water infiltration, decreased nutrient cycling by tillage. But it's not only tillage, it's also things like too much synthetic fertilizer, too much herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. Those are all disturbances that have a negative effect on the processes. The third principle is that of armor on the soil. In other words, covering the soil. I always tell people, walk into a forest, walk into a native ecosystem. How much bare soil do you see? No, if it's bare, it's only because of mankind's action. Nature always tries to cover the soil, keep it protected from wind erosion, water erosion, evaporation, etc. Fourth principle is that of diversity. You need diversity, a diverse array of different plant species, different heights, leaf shapes and sizes, different root types, rooting depths. That diversity is key to driving soil health. Fifth principle is living root in the soil as long as possible throughout the year. Look at what we've done in agriculture today. On arable land, we plant a crop, cash crop. Then once we harvest that crop, that land sits idle. Okay, how are we pulling in sunshine if there's nothing growing there? How are we feeding biology? How are we building soil aggregates? You need that living root at all times, that living plant, in order to do that. And then the final principle is that of animal and insect integration. Land-based ecosystems simply do not function properly without animals and insects, despite what some people think. We need animals and insects on the landscape. So those 6 principles really drive the 4 ecosystem processes. And I tell people, it's not rocket science. It's really pretty easy if you grasp those 6 principles and 4 ecosystem processes.
So where do the people fit into that?
Where do the people fit in? The people fit in that they are caretakers of creation, and they are the ones who dictate how these principles and how the processes are on their particular landscape. And unfortunately, I think King Charles said it best when he said, modern agriculture is an arms race against nature. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's how it is. Mankind is trying to impose his or her will on nature instead of letting nature function properly.
I think it was Aldo Leopold who said a similar thing, didn't he? He said that it's always a race between the insect and the pest or the disease, and then the big pharma creating, well, they kind of create the problem in the first place, create the so-called solution for it. Mm-hmm. It's just an inevitable cycle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you, as a city boy, just winding back a few years, city boy, marrying the daughter of your in-laws there, and how did is there any tips, because that happens a lot in Australia, it happens a lot around the world, you got any tips for managing expectations of in-laws? You weren't the farmer, yes, you'd done some education, you were probably pretty keen and a nice guy. Were there times when they were thinking, oh my God, what is Gabe doing?
I'm sure every day. They had a lot of patience. They did not understand at all, and realized I was smart enough to not be too forceful to them. They turned over the grazing land to me, so I was able to start implementing. At that time, we called it rotational grazing. Now we call it adaptive grazing. I started to implement some of those things, and they let me go because they had no interest anymore in livestock. So I started that way, but I didn't try to impose no-till on my father-in-law. That I let him come to the point of retirement. Then I immediately went no-till, so it was kind of a give and take. And what could he do? Because he had retired. So he says, okay. And he didn't care for it to start. But after a period of years and seeing us go through those 4 years of disasters, he really began to, I think, understand what I was doing. And when he saw the land become productive to a much greater capacity than he had ever seen it, then he kind of realized, hey, maybe the city kid does know something.
It takes a big man to do that, doesn't it? Because I know in certainly not so much my family, or maybe my family, but only a little bit, but certainly in a lot of Australian families, changing practice from, say, I'll just put it simply, from conventional to more regenerative things. The younger generation comes through, they take over the farm, they've got, wife from the city and new ideas and all sorts of things. And the one thing that really strikes me is that often the challenge for the son, the daughter coming back to the farm with these new practices is yes, the parents, usually the father, kind of challenging those things, but then grappling with the idea that maybe bringing those new practices into the farm makes dad wrong, has made dad wrong, which is, I'm sure that's a dynamic that takes place in many farms, and it's not so much about what happened before was wrong.
Yep.
It was just different, right?
Well, and I work with this a lot because with Understanding Ag, we have well over 2,000 clients spread over a large geographical area. Family dynamics play in a lot. And what I tell them is, I'm often brought in to talk to both generations, and I tell the younger generation they have to have patience because the parents have been doing the best they can with the understanding they have, and realize farmers cannot implement what they do not understand. So these regenerative practices are not being taught. They're not being taught in our school system, in the university. They're not being taught by extension by the agronomy centers, etc. So you have to have patience and realize that they did the best they could with the knowledge they had. And you're not trying to one-up them. You're simply trying to carry on in a profitable manner and in a way that's good for the ecosystem.
And tell me, why is there open resistance to the teaching of this in universities and schools, or it's just they couldn't be bothered? It's change, and any change is hard for education institutions to swallow.
Well, understand that, and I'm not so familiar over here in Australia how it is, but in the States, universities to a large degree are funded through grants to do research. Well, who's going to give them the research to study and teach regenerative? Okay, certainly not the chemical industry, the fertilizer industry, the equipment manufacturers, the grain growing associations themselves, because they get funded based on yield. Okay, so the whole system has evolved to the point it's not conducive to promoting these regenerative practices.
Yeah, there's not money in it for those who are...
Correct.
And so yes, exactly the same over here.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to university just on the other side of town here for 4 years doing a rural science degree, and at no time, it was 4 solid years of study, science, and at no time did they put together the units of soil biology, chemistry or physics into one overall thing. Now, that's not quite what we're talking about in terms of resistance in universities, and, because change is very challenging, isn't it? It challenges people's jobs and their paradigms. Tell me, Gabe, what paradigms of yours have been recently broken or bent? Is there anything that stands out?
Well, one that we're learning a great deal about and we're involved with heavily is that the nutrient density. And when I talk nutrient density, I'm not talking about protein or fats. I'm talking about these phytochemical compounds that really drive the gut microbiomes of animals that are consuming the plants and the human gut microbiome. And what we're really finding is these phytochemical compounds come about because of the diversity of both the species of plants, animals, and insects above ground, which drive the diversity of the microorganisms below ground. And it's those microorganisms then that feed the plant and cause these plants to be able to have the wide array of these phytonutrient compounds. And I find that just tremendously fascinating. And I think of it from the standpoint, I'm always one, Charlie, I want to do what's right for the ecosystem, but I also want to do what's right for the pocketbook of the farmers. And I really think we need to get back to the point where food is being consumed as preventative medicine. Mm-hmm. And if we truly begin to understand how soil functions and how these plants develop these phytonutrient compounds, that's really going to put farmers in the driver's seat, and that they will be rewarded for the good work they're doing.
I think what's fascinating, one of the things that you're doing, Gabe, is that you've got 5,000 acres there? 6,000 acres. And so that's, in anyone's language, especially in Eastern Australia, is, reasonable holding and a lot of activity. You've also incorporated a paddock to plate, your nourished by nature range of products. Mm-hmm. And that's fascinating because I don't know many people who are doing that in Australia and doing it well with that much land. And also, so you're doing broadacre cropping and grazing, but you've also narrowed it right down to the consumer as well. How do you, did you start that? Did you get help? Did you get people in? Because that's a real challenge for people, is like, I've already got so much to do, and now I'm thinking about, butchering and selling and going to bloody farmers markets,
Yeah, and that evolved over time. I remember in 1999, I took a load of oats, grain, to the grain terminal, and they offered me 99 cents a bushel. And I begged for that extra penny because I didn't want to sell something for less than $1 a bushel. And they refused. And I remember coming home and talking to my wife, and I said, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of, they're selling products, and I just have to accept and pay what they want from an input standpoint. And then when it comes for time for me to sell, I can't demand it. They're just offering, this is what it is, take it or leave it. And so I really realized I needed to become a price maker instead of a price taker. And that started me on the path. Early on, I started growing seed, started selling a lot of seed, whether it be grains or cover crop seed. I was selling breeding stock, so a little value added there. Then that evolved into, we started selling some grass finished beef. But I give up the real credit for the marketing and Nourished by Nature to my son, Paul, who I challenged him. I always knew he was going to come back to the farm. He didn't want to go to the university, but I made him to get off the farm. He come back and he said, okay, Dad, you preach diversity, but all we got is cattle and crops. He said, I want to diversify the livestock. I want chickens and sheep and maybe pigs. What could I say? I said, you go, son. And once he started doing that, he immediately started direct marketing those products. So it was an evolution. And now he and his wife, takes the vast majority of their time. They market everything they grow and raised is marketed to consumers.
Do you get a bit of that every now and again? Does he leave some in the fridge for you?
Oh, I just take it.
You just take it?
I just take it. Yeah. I call it interest.
That's only fair. You're Dad. Tim, I want to go back to experimenting because I know that's a large part of your character and the development of your farming practices. Tell me about the importance of experimenting, and you mentioned, I think you mentioned curiosity there before, and how important experimentation and curiosity might be for a developing farmer or a proactive farmer.
So I'll give some examples. So early on, I started to grow cover crops, but rather than just grow, and I was just growing them as fodder crops for feed, rather than just grow one species, I was putting 3 together. And then when I heard Dr. Ademir Caligari from Brazil, Argentina, speak, and he was talking about, no, they're meant to be seeded in multi-species combinations. So immediately I come home and, well, that makes sense. Nature, out in my native pastures, there's 100 different species growing. Why am I not doing that? So I started to mix species and grow these diverse array of cover crops, and the soil health just advanced tremendously. So I'm one where I'll try things like I'll try a new, quote, new variety of seed, new species that maybe people think aren't adapted to my environment. I'll try it and I'll give it a couple strikes, but if it doesn't work after a couple years, then we just move on to the next. But you always have to try things, otherwise, how do you know? How do you know what works, what doesn't? Give you another example. So winter barley. Winter barley's grown in the southern U.S. because they say it won't overwinter up north, it'll winter kill. Well, I got thinking, that doesn't make sense to me because we have perennial plants. So I bought some winter barley seed from down south, brought it up, seeded it. First year, a little bit survived, very little, but I harvested it. Second year, quite a bit more. Third year, hey, I had it. Now I got a barley variety that'll overwinter. Okay? They told me I couldn't do it. Well, that's a challenge to me. I'll try it.
So it's a safe to fail kind of attitude.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
This episode of the Regenerative Journey is brought to you by Catalyst Soils, where ecological magic meets practical action. Agroecology coach Jake Chandler helps farmers unlock the potential of their land by blending soil, plant, and microbe testing with real-world landscape insights, all through a deeply connected ecological lens. And I can vouch for Jake. I've sent him soil tests before, which he has reformatted and given me a very, very clear and concise summary and appraisal of those soil tests. And that's why, as a special offer for my listeners, Jake is offering a 1-hour coaching session to explore your farm's hidden potential. And I'm doing that because I have absolute faith and confidence in Jake's ability. Visit catalystsoils.com.au and use the code CharliePodcast to claim your discounted session. Tell me, is there anything in your experiments, or even when you've got beyond the experiments and you're doing broadacre sort of versions of your experiments, has there been a time or a scenario where you just could not explain it, or science couldn't even explain what the outcome was?
So I would say the best illustration of that is once soil health, the health of our soil reached a point, the function of that soil increased exponentially. And I'll give you an example of that. So we just went through 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, that were the 3 driest years in recorded history in Bismarck, North Dakota. Okay? Very, very dry. We're talking less than 125 mils of precipitation total for each year. So very dry conditions. Okay? My son, who was running the ranch then, seeded a cash crop. So did the neighbors on the arable land. He harvested a crop every year. Now, was it a bumper crop? No, but it was a crop. Was it profitable? Yes, where the neighbors didn't because it just dried up, wilted. Well, it showed me that once soil health reaches such a state and function, and you get the mycorrhizal fungi and the biology working and a healthy water cycle, you can become very, very resilient. Another case in point, one of our consultants, Fernando Falomir, lives in probably the hottest environment in Mexico. His daytime temperatures will be 115 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, very, very hot conditions, very little moisture. He went through 2 years on less than 12 millimeters of precipitation total for 2 years. The third year here, he got little over 2 inches of precipitation. Okay, now I got to convert that to millimeters. It'd be
2
like
inches
what,
is 50 mil.
50 mil?
50 mil.
Yeah, so he had a little more than that, so call it 60 mil. And he's literally has grass taller than himself. And it goes to show, once you build the system, you can have these swings in temperature and that, but you're still going to produce. And I think back to what landscapes around the world must look like. And yesterday we flew in a plane over here to Armandale, and I'm looking down, and to me it looks like it's really desertifying the system. You know, we should see green growing plants, even though you're in a drier time of the year, but we don't. And I'm thinking, what did it look like 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago? I'll guarantee it was green and growing.
Totally.
Okay. We've desertified and are desertifying this planet. So those things are things that it really, once you become an observer, you see more and more that, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. And once we focus on the principles and processes, we can rapidly regenerate this landscape.
Is there been an occasion where you've done soil? Do you do soil testing? Is that sort of something?
Yeah, I do it more to explain to people where we're at. I don't use any inputs, so,
No.
Besides seed, so.
But I'm just curious, has there been times where you've done a soil test and you've got the theoretical sort of, a profile of minerals and elements and so on, and then done your business for a few years and then done a soil test and nothing can quite explain, hang on, our phosphorus levels have gone up so many parts per million. We haven't put more phosphorus in the system, or calcium, or those things. Is that something you've
And we see that all the time with our clients. We do baseline work, and we do one test when we bring on a new client that's called a total nutrient digestion test, TND. And what that does is that not only quantifies the inorganic fraction in nutrients, in other words, what's water soluble and available to the plant the day the test was taken, but it also gives you this whole pool of organic nutrients that are not available to the plant. And it's those organic nutrients that become available via biology. So most farmers, 99% of them, really have no idea of that organic pool that's there. And as they go down their regenerative journey and start proliferating biology and getting the natural nutrient cycle to work, they're gaining access to that vast pool. And then we have to realize most of what a plant needs for growth is found in the atmosphere. Above every surface acre of Earth, there's approximately 32,000 tons of atmospheric nitrogen. I can't figure out why any farmer would write a check for nitrogen. It's free. All they need to do is have the plants and the biology, because there's bacteria such as azotobacter that will capture that atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into usable forms. It's available. We just have to understand that.
It's you're no doubt familiar with Nicole Masters' work.
Oh yeah,
she was in last couple of weeks have been crazy. In Queensland a couple of weeks ago with her doing some series of conferences, and I remember something that really, she didn't say at this time, but it struck me. I interviewed her a number of years ago. That the most, dare I say, one of the most important characteristics of soil is air. The air pockets. Because if you've got an air pocket, you can put water in there. If there's air in there, you've got nitrogen. To your point about all we got to do is get some air in there. Can you grab the mic? You certainly can.
This one?
I think that's his, actually.
That's all right.
Filmmaking interruption.
That's okay.
My apologies.
That's a pleasure. All good. You've got that one tucked up under there.
Amazing. I love listening to you talk, Gabe.
He's interesting. He's a good guy.
You're off and out and about.
Yes, we've been filming, just for those listening, we've been filming this for the Groundswell movie. So no, do not touch that joke. Okay. And there went the podcast.
Hey, buddy.
No, that's all good.
Okay, thank you.
Buddy, take care.
No, that's fine. We'll see you. You heading out there this afternoon?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to come out there this afternoon.
I'll see you this afternoon then.
Okay.
Sounds fun. Hey, lovely to meet you, and I'm very excited about this doco coming out.
Oh yeah, groundswell. Wait till you
They do a great job.
That's great, and the kids stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm going to make sure my kids watch it when it comes out.
It'll
Prime.
be great for adults and for kids as well.
Yeah, totally.
It'll make people laugh. It'll make people cry. It will give people
Yep.
hope
Yep.
about what we can do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Hey guys, we'll see you this afternoon, eh?
See you soon. Thanks to all of your listeners for all that everyone is doing around the world.
Yeah, totally. Well, we've got a good bunch of listeners, and they love this sort of stuff. So it's about diversity, isn't it, Gabe?
That's right.
Hey, diversity of ideas and people involved. So that's awesome. The more of this sort of stuff we can pump out there,
diversity of ages,
the better. Yeah, totally, absolutely. Well, that's critical, you know.
Jedi, they're filming right now, and we're interrupting the podcast. Let's see. Okay,
we needed a bit more orange in the thing. We're lacking a bit of orange, so you spice it up.
Give a funny look right here to the camera.
There he is.
Yeah. Okay.
Good work. Hey guys, enjoy your afternoon. I'll see you there.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie.
No worries.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Tell me, isn't it great when kids get involved?
It is. It is. They're the future.
Tell me,
and they're why we do what we do.
Tell me, what's your view on? Well, actually, I've got two things. I'll start with the kids one, and then I want to go to adults. But where are things up to in the States? Do you feel in terms of children's connection or reconnection with nature? Is there not enough of it going on? Is it? Are there programs over there where kids are able to get out of schools onto farms and get their hands dirty and climb the tree and fall out and eat the sheep shit and just really get involved?
It's increasing, and we're seeing a lot more in our school systems of maybe having gardens and small farms associated with schools. I'm not going to say it's large scale, but it is happening and it is increasing, and that's a good thing.
Do you have kids on your farm? Did you do tours and things?
We do. For over 25 years, we had an internship program on our farm. We'd bring in interns for a 6 months period over the summer to work on the farm and learn. Unfortunately, it's one of the sacrifices we had when I started understanding ag is that having interns, you need to be there and educate and teach them. And my son, obviously, with all he's got going on, they're a bit limited, so they had to stop the internship program. But we did that for years, and it was very enjoyable. In fact, that's how my son met his wife. She came and interned on the farm for a couple of years.
That old chestnut.
Yeah, I did not realize
was that the motivation?
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but it must have been.
Hey, Dad, we should get some interns here.
Well, I always wondered why he wanted pictures.
Just to make sure the recruitment process was thorough.
Yeah.
You needed to make sure when the days before swiping left and right and all that sort of caper. Tell me now to adults around your part of the world, what did, when you were sort of experimenting and neighbours would drive past and I remember you saying that there was a fellow who, was he working for the council or the county and he'd drive past, was he slashing the roads or something? Was that the guy? Someone was noticing, he said, hey, your farm's better than the rest.
Yeah, and that's true, he did. People take notice in saying that with my neighbors, it's always hard for a neighbor to admit that another neighbor of theirs is maybe doing a little better than them. So, but that's fine. I just don't let it bother me. I'm going to do my own thing, And besides, if you watch the documentaries, Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, I feature my neighbors quite prominently in those.
Yeah, and I guess it's not about making them wrong, isn't it? It's just different.
It's just showing.
Yeah,
just telling a story.
And do you think it's sort of like, is it contagious up there? Are they going, maybe not your immediate neighbours, but maybe surroundings have heard about this guy and they drive past and go, shit, something's different going on there. Is there some sort of a contagion happening up there in that regenerative space?
Well, and I often get asked this, if this is so good, what are your neighbors doing it? And I said, well, realize when I started no-tilling in 1994, I believe I was the first 100% no-tiller in our area, our county. Now, 80% of the county's no-till. So it's totally changed, and that's the norm. Now, Are cover crops and direct marketing and selling the norm? No, but there is definitely an increased fraction that are doing it.
How did you get through the whole COVID thing? Did you continue? I mean, that's a whole other podcast series, probably.
Well, I'll just say this. With COVID, realize our business is consulting on farms and ranches. And of course, when it first broke, everything shut down. And I tell the story that I was home for 24 days in a row, and it had been over 5 years previously before I'd spent that long a time at home. So after about 10 days, my wife was saying, you got to go somewhere. You got to get out of here, do something. So we just worked in central U.S. We stayed off the coast because they were closed down, but it didn't slow down our business at all. Consulting the farmers and ranchers, they wanted to work with us. So it was just business as usual.
And what about the paddock to plate stuff? The farmers markets closed out. That would have had a big hit.
It actually increased sales 200% to 300% because we were shipping direct to their doors, and they could get the products, and that really spurred a movement in the United States to know where your food comes from. And those who are direct marketing, the majority will tell you that sales just boomed during those times. Backed off slightly once COVID was over, but is increasing again.
Tell me, just want to jump back to the topic of regenerative agriculture. It's quite the topical, I mean, that's you're here because you're spreading the good word across Australia, and we've got the documentary and so on, and you're kindly giving us time here for our podcast. Tell me about the word regenerative. Like, has it changed over time? What's your definition? Mm-hmm. Because I know a lot of there's interesting. Yeah, and a lot of people say, well, there's no distinct definition for regenerative agriculture, but the one that we've landed on, that we came up with, that we use all the time, is farming and ranching in synchrony with nature to repair, rebuild, revitalize, and restore ecosystem function, beginning with all life within the soil and moving to all life above the soil. And we think that's all encompassing. It takes into account all parts of the ecosystem, and I find it's pretty simple. Most people can understand it. And I think that it's interesting that, there's not enough of us, I don't think, is my view, for us to be fighting about the definition.
Yeah, exactly. And I really have been trying to push the mantra, common ground for common good. I really believe that as a society, humans can agree on 85+% of the issues. We all want clean air, clean water, nutrient-dense food, right? So why don't we come together and focusing on working on those things we agree on? That other 10, 15% will sort itself out, okay? And we've always had the belief we will work with anyone, anywhere, anytime, as long as it's for the common good. And I think if you approach it that way, you really find that people have a lot more in common than they do differences.
Start with yes.
Yep.
Start those conversations.
That's right.
Talking about that sort of thing, Gabe, tell me about Maha. What's your view? What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
Were you involved? Were you behind it? Were you part of the
Make America Healthy Again? Yeah, and actually we were. Our team is in constant conversation with RFK and his team, and even when he was running for president before he dropped out and then became a part of President Trump's cabinet, we have been actively involved in that movement. And I look at it, I get asked, so realized 10 days ago I was in Canada and they were all giving me grief because of the threat of tariffs. Yeah. And then I drove home from Canada, hopped on a plane to the UK and spent a week there, and they were really giving me grief about the president, And then I come over here and everybody's wondering, okay, what's going on there? And I tell people, calm down, it's going to be okay. That's just Trump's way of stirring the pot a bit. In saying that, I tell everybody, I really believe this is a good thing because what RFK wants is to focus on health. And I don't care where I travel all over the world, the food is crap. It is just terrible. Some is a bit cleaner, maybe not the chemicals or that, but it's not nutrient dense. And I firmly believe that 95+% of people in this world have not tasted nutrient dense food. They just do not know what it's like to put nutrient dense food in their bodies because there's so little being produced. And I really think this movement is an opportunity for the regenerative movement, and we can really help propel regenerative agriculture and the movement towards nutrient dense food.
How do you see that happening? Like what are the steps involved to kind of like, to push back or to infiltrate or to change? I guess is that's a big job. I mean, I'm totally behind it. I think it's the best thing that's happened.
So I think we need to address all areas of the supply chain. For a number of years, there's those of us in this movement who have been working at the ground level, boots on the ground, educating farmers, ranchers, landholders, etc. But we're missing out on consumers, and then we're missing out on the whole supply chain of those who take our raw commodities and offer them to the consumer. So one of the projects I'm involved with, we started another company called Regenified. And Regenified is a verification certification company whose whole mission is to baseline what farmers are doing on their property and get them rewarded for that good work, those who are going down the regenerative path. So we have the most thorough protocol in the verification business. 85 different data points that are taken everywhere from soils tests to biodiversity of plants, animals, insects to the and it's all based on the 4 ecosystem processes. How well are you moving down this path? And then what we do is the difference with this verification is A, it's annual, B, it's scientific, it's being done annually assessment, and then C, you have to improve. You can't it's not just checking boxes and say, yes, I'm regenerative, here's a label. No, you have to keep moving up. And, even on ranches and farms that have been doing this a long time, you can still improve. I tell people our ranch still degraded. We got a long way to go. Okay. So this demands improvement. Then what it does, it gives the brands who buy those commodities, it gives them the certainty that they're purchasing regeneratively grown and raised products. It gives them the resiliency because the farmers are more resilient. So the brands are going to have this more consistent supply of high quality product. And then for the consumer, it's going to give them the confidence that, yes, I'm purchasing something that's healthy and I'm purchasing something that's doing right by the environment and by the animals, etc.
So how's it going to work, Gabe, in terms of I was talking to Murray Richardson yesterday. You might meet him tomorrow, actually, lovely guy, and I've worked with him with Highland Beef, and they're sourcing grass-fed beef here in Australia, and they put it out to their client landholders, and they grow them out to particular weights, process them here, and actually send them to the States. Now, the challenge is consistency. So someone might be buying, whether it's Murray's or anyone with the Regenified stamp, like a processor who might go, okay, this landholder is certified under the Regenified system. We would love to have your meat, broken down. We'll buy your meat, break it down, and put it into packs and send it out to homes or whatever. How is the consistency in terms of consistency of supply? That's a pretty big challenge, isn't it? Because because they can go. I'm not saying that they would, but they can go to a feedlot and go, I'm just going to get a cookie cutter item every bloody day of the week. Yeah,
they can. And what do they get for that? They get no guarantee, that they're doing the right thing. So you might look at that as a challenge. I look at it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for every farmer out there to validate the good work they're doing. And then the farmer needs to be salesmen themselves. Farmers are historically very good at producing something, but they're terrible marketers by and large, right? They just don't care to get into that. Well, they need to become good marketers. That's one thing about, my story, and I told the story about the oats. That was a challenge to me to become a good marketer. And when you're $1,500,000 in debt, at a young age, you better learn to become a good marketer, right? Because you got to get out of that hole. So I look at it as an opportunity. And what we're finding is you look at brands out there, okay? Your very, very large companies, they just source mass balance, okay? They don't have that identity preservation of the commodity, whether it's canola or wheat, barley or beef or whatever, okay? But these mid-sized brands, they can distinguish themselves because they have the ability to have that one-on-one relationship with the farmer, and then they can source those products, have it verified, and use that as a selling point. And right now, the demand for regenerative products is just skyrocketing. And you take our own ranch, we sell our products for higher than organic prices. Okay, now, the dirty little secret is we're producing them for lower than any commodity farm or ranch can do it. So we're capturing this huge premium. Why? Because we can. I'm a capitalist, and I'm not embarrassed to say that. Now, people might say, oh, but your food isn't affordable by all. Yeah, go price out your cereal once. What are you really paying? You can eat our pastured eggs and our pastured pork bacon cheaper than you can eat that bowl of cereal.
Well, that's the thing, and I don't try and have these conversations with people because it's really pointless. But when people say organic produce, as you say, is too expensive, it's like, well, okay, let's just park that. Yep. Let's look on the rest of the shopping trolley. What else is in there? Because that's what you pay. Your bill at the end of the day, or in the supermarket, is also includes not just your fresh produce, which you can swap out for organic. Yeah. It is all that.
But I would take it a step further than that, Charlie. What are your healthcare costs?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
And if you're buying nutrient-dense food, your healthcare costs will significantly decrease.
Totally.
And you'll be much healthier.
Yep.
And so what's that worth? You look, I don't know how it is in Australia, but in the States, man, the average person's probably on 4 or 5 different prescriptions. It's ridiculous.
Well, I was listening to RFK there this morning, and he was saying, as we kind of know, I listen to him a lot, the States has the high, the most unhealthy people in the world, essentially, with all of the different diseases and ailments, but spends the most on health.
Healthcare. That's right.
It's like that formula is clearly not working.
Yeah. I'll never forget once I was doing a banquet speech for a civic group, and doctors, lawyers, accountants, et cetera, and I was talking about this nutrient-dense food. And a doctor stood up and he says, but Gabe, you got to remember, I make my living writing prescriptions. Oh. And me, with my big mouth, I fired back, but did you not also take an oath? Yeah. Oh, he got mad at me. Oh. He got so mad at me that I'd call him out on that. Yeah. But it's the truth, they unfortunately, too many, they just look at it as, it's their paycheck, and the more prescriptions they can sell, the better.
And where does that all start? I guess it's at university, where they do 6 years of medicine and they don't do anything on nutrition.
Case in point, my son-in-law is a dentist. And I asked him, okay, in your 6 years of medical school, how much time was spent on health and nutrient-dense food? And he just laughed and he said minutes. It wasn't. Yet, what affects oral health? Everything you put in your mouth,
And the Western A. Price work with the jaw development and so on is fascinating.
Yeah.
So just staying on that one a little bit, big pharma and big ag really, and what's the Maha? How are they going to tackle that behemoth? Do you think? Because it's got the consumers like, we're going to make you healthy. But we've got to get people growing the food that people can eat to become healthy.
That's right, and that's why I look at it as an opportunity. And remember, okay, what dictates what politicians do? It is the lobbyists there, okay. But what's one thing that trumps the lobbyists? because all politicians want this more than anything else, is to be reelected. So we educate the consumer.
Yep.
Consumers demand it. And I'm sorry, I really don't care if the pharmaceutical companies stay in business or not.
No,
You know, that's
well, the larger they are and the stronger and healthier they are, the sicker the people of America or pick any country.
Sure.
That's the fly in the ointment.
Yep.
I'm just going to put a little tick next to those little questions there, Gabe. Tell me, Christine Jones.
Yeah, wonderful friend.
Isn't she great?
She is. I learned a lot from her. Mentor of mine.
She, I noticed she wrote a little something nice. She's one of the few people that's really nice about you, Gabe.
Yeah, she is.
In the front of your book, Dirt to Soil.
Yep.
She is fantastic, and she has, as you well know, she spent many years not being very well liked by the so-called authorities and the scientists and the lecturers and all that sort of stuff. And one of the most memorable, I guess, bits of information that she got really clear with me about, not personally, but just in terms of her presentations, I've seen her multiple times, is the science that's now available, and she's part of all that, about that summer fallow situation. And you referenced it before, it's like, and it's still, you would have seen it yesterday flying up here. It's like, no, we've got to kill it. We actually don't want rain over the summer because it'll just grow weeds, and then we've got to spray them, and we actually don't because they're going to rob moisture. It is such an ingrained phenomena in farming, and certainly in Australia, I'm sure, over where you are too. And she was the first person that I heard talking about the total reverse.
Yeah.
That we need.
Yep.
And the best thing for your soil and your business is to cover. You want to step into that a bit, because I think it's one of the most challenging ideas for a lot of farmers.
Yep.
Croppers.
I'm going to use this as an analogy. Just last week over in the UK, we're out on an arable farm, and the UK government is paying the farmers to not do anything after they harvest the crop and just have bare stubble there. Right. And we walk out in this, and they're explaining this program to me, but what do we see? The whole ground is just covered with weeds, okay? So I asked the group there, I said, what does this tell you? Well, it's weeds. We need to spray it. And I said, really? Is that what you get out of that? Yeah. And I says, well, it's telling me that nature's trying to put a living root in that soil to feed biology, capture solar energy, feed biology. I said, that is an absolutely ridiculous government program. And the next day, we met with the head of DEFRA, which has to do with government policies like this over there in the UK. And I was explaining to her that that's an absolutely ridiculous waste of taxpayer dollars. Plus, it's actually having a negative compounding effect, because you are losing soil aggregation. You're not feeding biology, so you're destroying the natural water cycle. You're destroying the nutrient cycle. Yet you're worried about climate change? And then you have programs like that. Now, from a farmer standpoint, it's long been proven, as Dr. Jones said, that we, rather than have that fallow period, let's have living, growing, either crops or fodder crops, cover crops, etc. That you're just going to build that aggregation deeper. You're going to enhance the water cycle, the nutrient cycle. That's how you build resiliency. Matter of fact, that's what my keynote will be on tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I knew it. I went through your briefcase before, and I worked it out. Are you going to catch up with Christine while you're here?
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have a chance to do that. But yeah.
Oh, boo.
Yeah.
No, she is awesome. I know she's not doing as many appearances, actually probably any appearances anymore, and I'd really love to interview her one day because she is I was emceeing at a conference probably 5 or 6 years ago in Victoria, and as part of the conference we all went out to a dairy farm nearby. Now, this is 5 or 6 years ago, so things may have changed since, but she said she went to this dairy farm and he's doing all this wonderful stuff. She picked up the soil and she said that is the best soil she's ever seen.
Really?
And for that, that's a big
great.
accolade.
That's great. It is.
And he hadn't been doing it for very long, actually.
Wow.
A few
It's
years.
great.
Yeah, if Christine Jones is saying that, you are certainly doing something right. is there anything, because Dirt to Soil came out in 2018.
18. Yep.
Tell me, it was actually the first audiobook I ever bought.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was listening to it again on double time this morning.
Despite the annoying voice.
No, it was good. No, I love it. And I was on double time. You still understand you really well on double time. Tell me, if you could include another chapter, what would you add? Is there anything you'd add in there now?
Yeah, we had not added the 6th principle of context. So that's not in my book, so that'll be the other one. But I'll throw out a little bone. We're actually working on 2 more books right now. Wow. So Dr. Alan Williams and myself have 2 of them in the works. Yeah, the one is simply on 634, the principles, rules, processes, and we're going to use farms as an example, farms around the world.
What was that one?
634. So we use the term, we talk about the principles and processes, but we also talk about 3 rules of adaptive stewardship. And just briefly, they're the rule of compounding, that every single thing you do on a farm has multiple effects, either positive or negative, never neutral. The rule of disruption, and that in order to drive change, you have to have that disruption. I always use the analogy of a weightlifter training for the Olympics. You don't lift the same amount every day. You vary your routine in order to get stronger. We need that in our ecosystems also. And then the third rule is that, again, of diversity, because we have that in the principles, we have it in the rules, and we certainly have it in the processes. So we're writing a book about that. And then the second book is on adaptive grazing. Because no matter where I travel all over the world, very few farms are using adaptive grazing. They're not being adaptive. They're being prescriptive.
Yeah.
And that gets their system stagnant. And so that's what the next book's going to be about.
So is it going to be a bit of a practical handbook almost? Or
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That one will be kind of a how-to book.
That'd be awesome. Because one of my questions was, well, I guess it is. Like, I mean, there's the it's everywhere. There's the application of adaptive grazing management with the animals as the tool. But what preparation can graziers do? So you've got the animal part of it, but then you've obviously got the plant part of it. What can farmers do? This may be chapter 3 in your new book. Right? What can farmers do? Graziers do to sort of almost prepare their pasture, or what skills they need to have before they can then introduce the animals?
That's a great question. And the one thing I see over and over, and I'm going to be talking about it here in Wilmot, is that we're not allowing those plants to collect the solar energy because we're grazing them too short, taking too much, so we don't have the leaf area to keep that energy cycle, which drives the nutrient cycle and water cycle. That, and we don't have enough diversity. So we need to get those things in place. The animals are simply a tool to A, allow disruption, but B, also to signal that plant that it needs to collect more solar energy, because once a plant's bitten, it sloughs off root exudates in order to attract biology to get the nutrients to regrow. Well, we need to understand, hey, we got to have those 4 processes working. Animals are just a small part of that, okay? They're just a tool to convert it, to drive the system, convert it to dollars. But we've got to implement the principles and rules to drive the processes first.
Well, I can't wait for that to come out. Because, the thing is, and you're dead right there, there's people are looking, understandably, especially men, are looking for prescription. They're looking for the formula. Just tell me how to bloody do it, and I'll just apply that. They'll adopt a system, and so many times that leads to failure, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And there's going to be a part of the book that deals with observation, because I really believe as land caretakers, we've lost the ability to observe. So often I go out with a client and there's that weed, I got to kill it. And I'm like, no, we need to observe. Why is that weed showing up? What's it trying to tell us? We have to hone our observational skills and then adapt accordingly.
Tell me, Gabe, you've been to Australia a few times, so you'll have some answers for this. And if you don't, you're in big trouble for not observing enough. Tell me, what are some of the interesting aspects of Australian climate or farming that you have either taken ideas back, or you find fascinating, or you sort of particularly note as a northern hemispherian to the southern hemisphere?
Yeah, well, the one big one is the intensity of the sunlight. And just how...
You've been to Tasmania yet?
No, I have not, but how you will evaporate to moisture to a much deeper depth because of that intensity and the power of that sunlight, which, as I was showing on a farm yesterday with an infrared thermometer, how fast then that ground heats up if you don't have proper armor. And so it becomes even more critical here that you keep armor on the surface, keep it well covered so that you don't evaporate that moisture. That really has stuck out to me. Another thing, of course, is the sheep. Very few places except the UK do we work with that many farms that have that many sheep, and the challenges that are associated with that, because with their mouths, they can select an individual plant and graze it right down, and that lowers diversity over time in an ecosystem. And I'm in no way saying sheep are bad. They're good. They're beneficial. But you need to adapt accordingly and work through that.
Yeah, we excluded sheep from our farm for many years for that reason. Then we introduced them again just for diversity and just to spread risk and enterprise and that sort of thing. And we hadn't adapted quite accordingly, and we certainly we had some wonderful lucerne paddocks that we'd sown many, many, many years ago before we sort of changed a lot of practices. And we did a really good job of selecting those lucerne plants right out of those paddocks with the sheep, So that was something that, but we're making some other plans about that. So anything else, any other practices? I mean, Australia, could boast that it sort of is the home of quite a few different, keyline, yeoman's, keyline stuff. And have you come across Peter Andrews?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with keyline and a tool, but quite frankly, applications. I'm one where I don't use iron unless absolutely necessary. So we don't see that broad scale adoption of that, although I certainly think it does have its place. One of the things that Australia that I find, much like the U.S., the history of a individual farm or station tends to carry through, and things are done that way simply because they were done that way in the past, and you see that often here. And
less over in the States.
No, not less in the States, but I just notice it. It's prominent. I wouldn't say it's any less in the States, except for the fact that farms in the States are much more fragmented. It appears much more rented property, not owned. It really, over here, tends to be a little more longer in generations, farm ownership. Not that way in the States.
Yeah, there's a lot of, even though we haven't been here, the white fellas haven't been here for as long as you guys have over there, there's some very in-ground paradigms and traditions, good and bad, cultural ones. Yep. Tell me, I also noticed Will Harris has appeared in the front of your book as well. Huh?
Yeah, Will and I are buds. We go way back.
He's a classic.
And Will and his family will be featured in Groundswell. They play a pretty prominent role in that documentary, so we look forward to that. I get down to Will's quite frequently, at least once, twice a year, and Will's only been to my place once, simply because it is, but he's
that kind of guy.
he's not tough enough to put up with our weather.
No, the cold.
Yeah.
Just put another jacket on.
Yeah.
Will. I had the pleasure of interviewing Will in July last year. My family and I went to the States, and we went to Will's at down there at Bluffton, and had a lovely time. He's the only person I would try to do his accent all the time, and he'd say, "That is the worst accent I've ever heard."
Yeah.
And then he's the only bloke I've ever heard in my life who actually pronounces the B at the end of lamb. Yeah.
I've never noticed that.
Maybe I was making it up, but I'm pretty sure he goes, we got pork and beef and lamb.
I never noticed that about him. And now I'll have to pay attention next time I talk to him. Yeah.
We had a lovely few days there. He's very generous with his time, and what a remarkable story of community.
Yep. It is. His employees just love him. Yep.
He's a great guy. He told the story about...
well, that's a little debatable. But I can say that because we're such good friends.
That's it. Well, he does have his rifle sitting on the in the shop there, and he told the story about how they disappeared one day, and how he dealt with that, and then the sign that said there that his rifles were returned, but the person who stole it didn't.
Yeah.
Basically, Gabe, I reckon I'm out of questions. What we'll want to do. Sarah's not back yet, but she will, because we are at Sarah Schmurder's house here, Highbury in Armidale, and we've escaped the sun. We've managed to keep in the shade, which is always a good thing. What I'm going to do, Gabe, is we're going to knock it off now, have a stretch, and then I just do a little bonus thing. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 questions, pretty short and sweet. You can extrapolate as much as you want. Standard questions I ask my guests post the main interview. Sure. And we don't know what we're going to do with them, but they should be interesting.
Sounds good.
I hope it was a bit more fun than this last really long, boring interview. Not you, not boring. My questions.
It's all
Gabe,
good.
can I say what a lovely time I've had this morning in a beautiful part of the world, and I'm so thrilled that you are here in Australia and you are talking the talk and showing us and telling us and teaching us how to do some of the wonderful things. And I mentioned it before, what I love about it is you're not mucking around with a couple of acres here and there, and that's fine if anyone was, but the fact that you've actually got broad acre cropping and grazing and you're incorporating that paddock to plate and you're getting to those farmers, I just think that's such a wonderful story and such an inspiring thing to be done. Obviously that, in your case, depended on intergenerational kind of cooperation, but the good news is it can be done.
Yeah, it can be.
And it is being
and it's being done all over the world.
Oh, totally.
And that's a good thing.
Totally. But, it's not a myth. It's something that people can aspire to.
And I tell people, I gave a keynote at a conference in Canada 10 days ago, and there was a lot of families there, and I made the statement that there's no reason for any farm to not be profitable. It's all a state of mind, and it's all telling and selling your story. Now you need the product to go along with that, but anybody can do this, and the consumers are hungry for it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I reckon that's a really good one to sign off with. Gabe, you're a legend. I'm going to get you to sign. I actually don't. I haven't got your copy of the book. I might go get one from Sarah there, and get you to sign it. But that one's from Brock Raster, my overseer.
Oh.
Soon to be operations manager.
Oh, nice.
No one's going to listen to this, so they won't even know anyway. If I can get you, when we turn this off, if you can sign it for him.
I'd be happy
Brock,
to.
Brock. He's a big admirer of yours, and he's at home drafting sheep as we speak.
Okay.
Making sure they don't eat that loosen out anymore.
There we go.
Gabe, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let's have a little break, and we'll be back for another 10 minutes. Can you handle that?
Sounds good.
Awesome.
If
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love your support by subscribing, rating and reviewing The Regenerative Journey on your favourite podcast platform. You help us reach more people and keep the show thriving for seasons to come. Each time you listen, you're choosing to make a positive shift in your own world. And if an episode speaks to you, please pass it on to friends, family or communities who might be inspired too. For more details and episodes, visit www.charliearnott.com.au.